Hey Meisner makers, it is Wednesday at 1 o'clock and you know what that means. It is time for Wednesday Workshop at 1. And today I have Dara with me. Woohoo! You can tell she's very excited to be here. And what she's going to show you how to do today is embroider on cardstock. Oh, here, this one will be a little easier for you to see on camera. And she's going to show you how to do applique on the cardstock, which I think is really a very cool way to take just the basic stitching kind of one more step to elevate the whole look of the project. So she's going to be working today with a design collection from Oklahoma Embroidery Supply and Design, otherwise known as OESD, called Applique Greetings. And this design collection can be downloaded from our website. If you go to products and embroidery, under embroidery designs, you'll find the link right there to Oklahoma Embroidery Supply and Design. Lots of great contemporary, traditional quilting motifs, applique motifs, just thousands and thousands of designs to get your creativity going. So, bare basics for stitching embroidered cards would be
stabilizer.
Okay, and you really like to use, you told me the...
My favorite's the perfect stick tearaway, because then the card will stick to it, and then when you tear it away, then that is all on the inside of the card. So that's my favorite. Most of the designers will call for just a tearaway stabilizer. So that's what I have in here today, and I'm going to show you some different tips and tricks on how to hold that card in there if you're not using the sticky stabilizer.
I like the sticky one too, and I'll just tear it away from the edges of the card. It gives the cardstock a little bit more body too over the lifetime.
And we'll show how to do that when we finish this card.
Perfect. So in addition to stabilizer, we need some thread, and you really liked the variegated threads, so we've got some Floriani variegated threads here today. The embellished 60 weight thread is a nice lightweight thread as well when you're working with designs on cardstock.
Right, and with the lettering, because the lettering is very detailed, and so the micro threads work really well for doing your lettering.
Now, when you're choosing designs, would you suggest that our makers at home choose designs that are specific to stitching on cards?
Typically, yes, because they're less stitch intensive. You can make your own, but just make sure you're picking things that don't have a lot of stitches. You can have a little more stitches if you're sewing on fabric. So the fabric would then hold up some of your stitches for that. But otherwise, yeah, you have to be very careful, otherwise you're going to have a punch card.
Yes, yes, because remember that every time the needle goes down through that paper, it is perforating the paper, right? So you do want to be careful about that. And then the other one more thing is there are a couple of cards here somewhere where you use Mylar, and it just gave it a nice, was it the one with the hearts? It gave it a nice little bit of shine in behind the embroidery designs. This particular Mylar, that's an embellished product, it comes in just this one color because it picks up the color of the thread that you stitch over the top of it. So it really is an all-purpose, every color, any color type of a Mylar product.
And this one's showing pink, it is that Mylar, so
love it.
Works out very nicely.
All right, those look great. Oh, and then the one other thing that you were telling me today, you like this particular pair of snips that's in the case. I do. Tell us about those snips.
So these are the embroidery snips in the our 90th anniversary case set of scissors. This pair right here actually has a little cutout so you can stitch or cut your jump stitches because that little hook goes right underneath those stitches. So you've got your snips, you've got your embroidery scissors for trimming, and then you've got I
love those with the tiny little point. If I need to get in there to clip something out, those work really, really well.
So those are really nice.
Okay.
The other thing you need is, because we are stitching on cardstock, you need a 7511 needle. Now, OESD will tell you a 60, but I will tell you don't use a 60 because you cannot use your needle threader. So 75.
Pick your poison. Smaller holes with the size 60, but you will have to thread the needle manually.
Yeah, and we know how tiny that little 60 hole is. So I use the 7511 needles,
and you've been very successful with them.
Been very successful on that. The other thing you need is, if you are embroidering with fabric on cardstock. You need steam a seam so that you can cut out your pieces. And what that does, it actually makes so you don't have a lot of threads hanging out. And we'll show how to do that.
To the fabric.
And then on this design, I did leave the paper on because it tells me what piece it is, and on the leaves it makes a difference. And it just sticks once I ironed it or pressed it on. Then this just sticks until I peel it off, and we'll get in more detail when we do that on the fabrics.
All right, makers at home, cameraman Joe, are we ready to stitch out a card?
Yeah, let's get started.
All right, let's come over to the machine.
Let's go. Okay, today we're working on the Brother Essence VM 5200. It is a combination sewing and embroidery machine. Just a really nice machine. What I like about the machines with the bigger screens, you see the whole picture here. This is step by step what you're doing at that given moment. The machine gives you information on how many stitches it is. So this is 33,651 stitches. We are at 0 right now. So as this design stitches out, then you'll be able to see where you are. It says it's 8 minutes. That's a lie. Double or triple it, and you will be closer to the time it takes to stitch out this card, because that stitch step out does not show or count for the thread changes that you're going to be doing. And then this is the most important part. I really like that this is your thread changes. So every time there is a stop, they've got a different color thread associated with it. I don't pay attention to what those colors are because it depends on what my fabrics are, what I want to do. But those colors for the changes make the machine stop so that you will either change your thread color, add a piece of fabric, do something in that line. So, and it tells you that every stitch is about a minute for what we see here, but it's showing you what we're going to do first. This first block is going to be our placement line of where we will put the card when we're ready to put the card down. So this is a little bit of information about the machine. What I really like, and one of the reasons I picked this machine, because it has the needle threader button. So I call this the magic button when I'm teaching the classes. Presser foot down and scissors. So those are my two favorite buttons. My number 1 favorite and then my number 2 favorite. So then it's got your needle up, down, your lock stitch, back stitch. Just want to tell you a little bit about the machine before we get started. Today we're going to stitch out this rose greeting card from OESD. This is the whole design that Jennifer showed you on from the Applique Greetings designs, but I have just that one card that we're going to do today. So the first thing I'm going to do is I have my stabilizer hooped. This one is a just a tearaway stabilizer. I'm going to show you what to do if you're not using the perfect stick that sticks the whole card to it. So we're ready to go. Guess I have to touch the button for embroidery. So all I'm going to do is I've got white thread in there, so it'll be hard to see in the beginning, but I am one that I will stitch out in as one solid color as much as I can. So the first thing that's going to happen, it's going to give me a placement line for my card. I'm using the 5x7 hoop. So I'm using just regular cardstock from one of the craft stores. We do sell some Kimberbell cardstock here that we've used in classes. This works just fine as well. So this is a 4.5 by 5.5. This is, they both are. Kimberbell has 2 different sizes for cards, but this is a 5x7 from a 5x7 packet. It's an A7. The one thing I want to caution you is that when you do your cards, make sure you know how your card is going to be oriented. You need to make sure your design and your card match each other. So I've got the fold here. What I want to do is I'm going to place the card inside this area. Because we're using a tearaway stabilizer that is not sticky, I am going to use two-sided tape to hold the card in place, and I am going to just stick tape in 4 corners. And I do this because this does not have a tack down stitch to hold the card down. Some of them do, some of them don't. It depends on the designer you're using and the style you're using. So because I don't have that tack down stitch, pull it out so I can stick the card in. So I want my fold. If you've got your fold here, we want to stitch on the front of the card. So I am going to place this card inside the placement line. Okay, not inside, it's a little bit larger, so I'm going to make sure it's kind of centered in there. Burnish it down so it's going to hold your card down. That's important so your card does not get away from you. Now it's going to do tack down lines for fabric. It's doing my center piece first. So I'm just going to do my placement stitch. So I have steam seam on here. So now, then this is just my template that I had to cut from. I'm going to peel that off. I'm going to peel the backing off the back side here. And then I'm going to place this piece of fabric inside that placement stitch line. And it's just sticky enough that I can pick it up in place because I'm at an odd angle. Doing this. Okay, so there it's down. And now it's going to do the decorative stitches to tack it down. On most of the cards, this is a light stitch. This one's a blanket stitch. It is not a satin stitch, so you're not going to cover that whole outside edge. If you don't have steam seam, you can stitch it down and then cut your fabric away, but then you will get frayed raw edges. And I've tacked it down in white, so it's very hard to see that stitch. I probably should change that. Well, it'll show better on this next one. Placement stitch for the next 2 pieces of fabric. Another reason I like to use the 2-sided tape to stick the card down is you can use regular embroidery tape to tape it down, but sometimes it'll peel off pieces of the card. So that's why I like the 2-sided tape or the sticky stabilizer. So I'm ready for the top and the bottom pieces of fabric. I'm peeling away the steam seam. I've changed the thread to green so that we can stitch out the leaf pattern That's just it's not putting fabric down at the moment. I've changed to a variegated thread so you could see the beauty of the variegated threads. I love using them, and that should show up nicely on the card. So I'm putting the leaves in. And there's just enough sticky on the back side to hold everything down. Otherwise we would have to tape them. In this design, they've got the leaves and everything pink for the flower. Well, I don't like pink leaves because that's not real. So my leaves are green, and so I'm going to have to make a color change when we get up to the flower part. So I just wanted to show you what I'm going to do so it will make sense. So now we should be ready to, as long as that doesn't go right up to the top there. +1 that one. Oh, I see what it's doing. It looks like it's doing a stem first, going up to the... Okay. So it's actually doing the rose. Well, I want that rose to be done with red thread. So I am going to cut my thread. Swap it out. Okay, so I know some of you have bad habits of just pulling your thread out through from here. That is called back pulling your threads. Don't do it. Clip your thread and then pull it out at the needle. Dispose of that piece of thread. And then when you rethread, hold it tight at the spool, thread your machine, use the magic button. We're ready to go. I'm going to back up to the beginning where it's going over that design. Go right over those same stitches that started out. Cut our thread, and we're going to change it back to red. I wasn't paying attention that it was coming down the back side. Just like at home. Yeah, it's doing the leaves next. So again, I'm going to have to stop it when it gets up to the red flower. Now it has us changing to a different color thread, but again, I want green inside my leaves, and then I'll wait to change it out. So hopefully we'll go do the rose last. So we're gonna, because you know I can't just leave well enough alone. So, doing the detail inside the leaf. Okay, so I stopped it right where we need to change to our thread color. The fine details on the rose. Our card is done. The machine tells us it's finished sewing. So now we need to, we're going to take the card off of the stabilizer. So we're going to pull our card out, remove it from the hoop. So I brought this hoop from home, and I wanted to show you what I've done while we're here. I've taken a pencil grip, one of the gel pencil grips, to put on my hoop to give me a little more grip when I'm trying to tighten that hoop. So that works out really nicely. Okay, so we've got our stabilizer out. When I rip the stabilizer off, I hold my fingers at the stitches around the edges there so that we can tear the stabilizer here. I'm going to hold my fingers at the the stitches. Get through the placement stitch. And then I can just tear right along. Card there. By holding where the stitches are, you're not going to tear out your stitches, so you're basically just holding that down. Now, when we go to finish the card, we need to cover up the stitches. So there's a couple of different ways to do that. So I've got this Mylar card here, and I've got a piece of paper from the scrapbooking section of the craft store. And what I'm going to do is glue dots. I have found that glue dots work the best from everything I've tried. I've tried Elmer's glue, I've tried glue stick. Things don't always hold. And then this card also has, and you can't really see it, it's got the two-sided sticky tape, so it sort of holds the paper in place. But we want to cover up those stitches so it looks nice and pretty. So all I'm going to do is take my glue dots, and this is on a roller. You can buy sheets of glue dots. Oops. Oh no, I'm out of glue dots. Okay, well this is going to work for right now. And then what I'm going to do is just put this over the card, kind of lining it up. And even though I ran out of glue dots, because it's got some on there, other than the little area, that holds that in place really nicely and it doesn't get all rumply like the Elmer's glue does. I've also used rubber cement, so I've tried just about everything you can think of. The other, and then I do the same thing, this one has fabric, so you can either do paper or fabric, but I put them down the same way. So this one has glue dots behind it as well. And there, your card is finished. The other thing you can do with cards is, say you didn't want to do a whole cardstock piece, they also make a washable paper that you can purchase. Cut it out into whatever size meets your design, and you can make just a single-sided card and make it as a postcard. And then you have it for there. So there you go. There are your cards. We'll put this one up here that we just did. There's your finished card. You still have an area where you can write around the outside if you wanted to say happy birthday, happy Mother's Day, whatever it is you want to say, but you have a finished card and you have made it on your machine. Something else I wanted to show you is that these are the same card, just stitched out differently. This is exactly as it is on the design pack that we just did, but this is done fussy cutting the fabric so that you have the dog fabric in the middle here. So look how different those two cards are. So you can customize them. You can also finish them off and customize on the back side. So this just has my little Minnie Mouse imprint and says made by me. So there's a lot of ways you can make those cards specific to your custom design. Enjoy making cards for all occasions.
That was awesome, right? Custom done cards in less time than it would take you to get out of your pajamas, drive to the store, and get back home. Awesome. Great way to use those little bits of fabrics that you have in your stash. A perfect excuse then to now get out of your pajamas, come down and visit with us, and add some more fabrics to your stash.
And you didn't have to pay $5.99 for a card.
Exactly. So with that $5.99 that we saved on each of those cards, we're into a half a yard of fabric right there.
There you go.
Easy peasy. All right, so we hope that you've enjoyed this. Can't wait to see what you create from your inspiration on this Wednesday workshop at 1. We'll see you next time.